Late at night, the first-class cabin touched down at Miami International Airport after a chaotic flight from Chicago. Marcus Tate, a black man in a battered leather jacket, stumbled off the aircraft, bruised, gripping a torn boarding pass in one hand. Behind him walked Victor Langston, a smug white businessman in a spotless navy suit, his expression calm, almost pleased, though his eyes flickered with something darker like fear, trying to hide behind arrogance. Passengers buzzed, whispering about what they'd seen mid-flight. What began as a snide remark turned into something raw, something that exposed deeper fractures. Marcus barely survived the ordeal, but the truth unspoken and poisonous still hovered in the air, shadowing Victor's every step. Just a few hours earlier, the sun had blazed over Chicago O'Hare International Airport, casting long shadows across the terminal. Travelers darted through security, luggage clattered, and voices echoed off polished tile. Marcus Tate, mid-30s, with oil-stained jeans and a faded gray t-shirt beneath his leather jacket, walked with quiet purpose toward Gate B12. A boarding pass, first class, peeked from his hand, freshly printed, crisp, and earned. Not gifted, earned. He was a mechanic turned entrepreneur. 15 repair shops across Chicago and its suburbs bore his name. Every scratch on his hands, every sleepless night spent with spreadsheets and busted transmissions, led him here. A business meeting in Miami could expand his operation further. But this flight, this seat in first class, it was more than travel. It was a statement. The gate agent, a young woman with a neat ponytail, scanned his pass. She flashed a polite smile. "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Tate." He nodded, stepped onto the jet bridge, inhaled the cool, recycled air, and allowed himself a flicker of pride. Plush leather, a glass of bourbon, maybe even Silent Seed earned that too. That quiet moment shattered as Victor Langston strode into the gate area like he owned it. Langston didn't need a rush. His kind never did. He moved with the confidence of generational wealth, a real estate mogul known as much for his ruthlessness as for his sleek towers downtown. Everything about him broadcast wealth and judgment. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, and his gold cufflinks winked under the fluorescence as he brushed past the crowd without a glance. He spotted Marcus ahead in the boarding queue. His eyes narrowed at the jacket, the jeans, the creased boarding pass. A smirk flicked across his lips, the kind that came naturally to men who thought they knew the rules and who belonged in first class. Victor breezed past a mother wrangling her toddler and stepped onto the jet bridge, just as Marcus slid into seat 2A. Marcus sank into the leather seat with a quiet exhale. The cabin still smelled faintly of citrus and sanitizer. Through the window, he saw baggage handlers stacking luggage into carts beneath the plane. The sun lit the tarmac in streaks of fire orange. He relaxed, letting himself feel the moment. First class wasn't a dream anymore. It was real. It was his. Then came the thud. Victor Langston dropped into seat 2B beside him, his carry-on shoved into the overhead bin with a grunt. The air changed immediately. Marcus didn't look. He didn't need to. He'd known it was coming. Victor's elbow immediately breached the shared armrest. His cologne's Pisces, expensive, poured into Marcus's space. Then came the voice. Loud, slow, deliberate. "Slumming it up here." The words hung in the cabin like smoke. A woman, too, rose back, glanced up, brows knitting. An older man across the aisle blinked from his tablet, pretending not to listen. But they heard. Everyone heard. Marcus stared straight ahead, unmoving. He didn't flinch, didn't speak. Victor chuckled, a low, sandpaper laugh. "Guess they're letting anyone in first class these days." The insult wasn't original, but it was sharp enough. Marcus turned his head slowly, locking eyes with Victor. He'd seen that smirk before on loan officers who'd doubted his business plan, on landlords who'd hesitated to rent to a man with rough hands and dark skin. The look never changed. "I paid for this seat," Marcus said evenly. "Same as you." Victor's grin faltered, just for breath. Then the engines roared to life beneath them. As the plane began to taxi, Victor leaned in closer, voice low and oozing contempt. "Sure you did. Standards are dropping everywhere." He flicked his eyes down to Marcus's jacket, then out the window, as though dismissing him entirely. Marcus stared out as the skyline of Chicago shrank in the distance, swallowed by clouds and speed. He said nothing. Silence wasn't surrender. It was armor. Victor pulled a tablet from his briefcase and began tapping through emails, muttering to himself about deals and margins. His elbows still hogged the armrest. The plane leveled at 35,000 feet, but the tension between them kept rising. The flight attendant appeared, pushing a cart stacked with glasses and drinks. "Would you like anything to drink, Mr. Tate?" she asked warmly, glancing down at her manifest. Marcus blinked, surprised by the tone. "Just water." "Thank you." She handed him a glass. Victor frowned. "Scotch," he said curtly when she turned to him. As she walked away, Victor muttered, just loud enough, "Mr. Tate, what's that about? You bribed the crew or something?" Marcus sipped his water, eyes fixed on the clouds. He wouldn't bite. But Victor was relentless. "Luxury ain't for everyone, you know. Makes things feel off." The words landed with force. Not just at Marcus. Around them, passengers shifted in their seats. Some uncomfortable, some entertained. Marcus set his glass down with care. "Different isn't always bad," he said, his voice low but clear. "Maybe you're the one out of place." Victor chuckled, but the sound was thinner now, less confident. Still, he pressed on. "How'd you even end up in first class?" he asked with exaggerated innocence. "Win a radio contest? Government program?" Marcus turned to him fully this time. His voice was calm, measured. "I own a chain of auto repair shops. 15 locations. Built from the ground up. That's how." Victor's smirk twitched. His nostrils flared, barely perceptible, but enough. Then he laughed loud, bitter. "Affirmative action handouts. Gotta love the system, huh?" Marcus didn't respond. "I didn't get handouts," he said finally. "I built my life. What did you inherit?" Victor stiffened. The question sank teeth into the heart of his ego. His smile vanished for the first time. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Words failed him. Moments later, the flight attendant, her name, tag, read, Kelly returned. "Would you like anything else, Mr. Tate?" she asked with a kindness that was no longer neutral. Victor watched the interaction with narrowing eyes. As she walked away, he muttered under his breath, "Should have stayed in coach." Marcus leaned his head against the window. He tried to breathe. The engine's hum was nothing compared to the noise boiling inside him. Victor wasn't just arrogant. He was dangerous. And he wasn't done. Not even close. An hour passed in simmering tension. Marcus kept his focus outward, eyes on the clouds, trying to let the cold glass of the window calm him. Victor, however, was calculating. He pulled out a $50 bill, smoothed it carefully, then slipped it into his pocket. As Marcus rose to stretch and use the restroom, Victor acted. He leaned down, unzipped Marcus's duffel beneath the seat, and planted the bill inside. Carefully, smoothly, silently. Then he sat back, adjusted his tie, and waited. When Marcus returned, Victor waved the flight attendant over. "I think this gentleman stole from me," he announced, voice rising theatrically. "My wallet was light. I checked. I saw him messing with his bag." The cabin froze. Passengers turned. Eyebrows lifted. Lips parted in silent judgment. Kelly hesitated. "Sir, that's a serious accusation." Victor leaned back, arms crossed. "Then check his bag." Marcus blinked. "What?" "You heard me," Victor said. "Unless you have something to hide." The flight attendant looked torn. Then she opened the duffel. The $50 sat on top. Gasps rippled. A woman clutched her magazine tighter. A man across the aisle muttered, "Typical," under his breath. Marcus felt like the air had been punched from his chest. "That's not mine," he said, voice steady but tight. He planted it. Kelly looked unsure, but protocol took over. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tate. We'll have to file a report." Victor smiled. Marcus burned. His body trembled not with guilt but fury. Victor turned, his voice a whisper only Marcus could hear. "This is what happens when you forget your place." Marcus sat back, fists clenched, jaw locked. He had been judged, tried, and condemned all between clouds. But the flight wasn't over, and neither was he. The hours crawled. Marcus sat bound in silence be judgment, not rope. Whispers flitted around the cabin. The word thief floated through the air like smoke. Victor relished the moment, speaking louder than necessary, laughing at old investment stories, gesturing grandly. He sipped his scotch like royalty. Marcus swallowed the insult like poison. Then something shifted. A young flight attendant Jamel stopped by Marcus's row. Dreadlocks tied back, eyes sharp. Under the guise of offering snacks, he leaned in close. "I saw him put it in your bag," he whispered. "I'll tell the captain when we land." Marcus blinked. Hope. Real, trembling hope. He nodded slowly. "Thank you." But minutes later, Jamal returned, face pale. He leaned in again. "I'm sorry. They're not listening." He got to them. Victor had cornered him in the galley. Slipped him a business card. A threat wrapped in silk. "You open your mouth, you're done." Jamal had folded, and Marcus was back to being alone. Victor caught Marcus's eye and smiled wide, then tipped his coffee. It spilled. Hot, scalding, burning Marcus's lap. He gasped, jerking upright. Pain sliced through him. "Oops," Victor said. "Clumsy me." Marcus stared at him, blinking through the agony. "You're a coward," he whispered. Victor leaned in, breath warm, voice colder than ice. "Stay in your lane, boy." That was the last straw. When the turbulence hit and the tray table slammed into his burned legs, Marcus snapped. He grabbed Victor's wrist mid-push and twisted. Not to injure, just to stop. Victor yelped, loud and sharp. The cabin gasped. "He attacked me." Victor screamed, cradling his wrist like it was broken. Passengers chimed in, those who had judged Marcus before. Unprovoked, one muttered. "Knew it," another sneered. Flight attendants swarmed. Zip ties were pulled. Marcus's wrists were bound. "Are you serious?" he barked. "I was defending myself, but truth had no place here. Not without proof." Victor smirked, leaning back. "Should have stayed quiet," he whispered. The humiliation ran deeper than the burns on Marcus's legs. He had been labeled, contained, reduced to a headline. Jamal avoided his gaze. Marcus sat there, zip-tied, eyes locked on the floor, ears burning with whispers. But not everyone was asleep. Carla, in row 4C, had seen it all, and she had recorded everything, including Victor slipping something else into Marcus's bag just before landing. As the plane began to descend into Miami, the cabin lights brightened. The tension didn't ease. Victor pulled out his phone, sent a single message. To Officer Delgado, black eye, and to a Coke in his bag. "Handle it." Then, with a sleight of hand masked by chaos, he dropped a small baggie of white powder into Marcus's duffel. As the wheels screeched onto the tarmac, police boarded. They marched straight to Marcus. "You're under arrest," one officer barked. They unzipped his bag, pulled out the drugs, held them up like a trophy. The cabin gasped. Again. Victor grinned, but Carla was already uploading the clip. Victor's hand, the baggie, the smirk. Within minutes, it exploded online. Skyline Injustice. Marcus's arrest video began trending, but so did the truth. In the police precinct, Marcus sat cuffed again. Then the door burst open. A woman in a gray suit stormed in. "Release him," she said, slapping a tablet on the table. On the screen, Carla's video. Victor planting the drugs. Lena Carter, Marcus's lawyer, stood tall. "He owns 50% of Tate Aeronautics. He owns the airline you're flying." The cuffs came off. Back at the airport, Victor strutted off the plane only to be tackled by police. "You're under arrest for assault, evidence tampering, and filing a false report." The passengers watched. Phones up. The applause was thunderous. Victor Langston's empire crumbled in real time. Sponsors dropped him. Deals dissolved. His name now synonymous with hate. Marcus stood at the press conference later that day. Leather jacket torn, burns still aching, but eyes clear. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about what happens when power is used to destroy, and what can happen when the truth fights back." Carla stood in the back of the crowd, watching silently. Marcus caught her eye, nodded, a gesture of thanks that carried more than words. Victor, meanwhile, sat in a holding cell, his phone confiscated, his suit wrinkled, his voice hoarse from shouting. Alone. The world had seen him for who he really was, and it didn't look away. As Marcus walked into the Miami Sun, flanked by supporters, press, and his legal team, he knew this wasn't just survival. It was reclamation. It was the beginning of something bigger. A movement. A vow. To build not just a business, but a better system. One flight had tried to erase him, but Marcus Tate wrote the ending. And it was the kind that soared.